Hi, Julia. It's so good to be with you. And I'm really excited about this talk today and really excited to share your voice with people. In particular, also um, of the people that I've worked with, you are someone who um, my heart went out to you. My heart goes out to everybody that comes to me, but there was like so much resonance in our stories because you came in literally in the throes of a health crisis that was very, very similar to the one that I was in. And I wonder if, for the purpose of giving people a sense of how actually this goes back even further because even probably before you met, I know in my case, dealing with such a crisis, there's a lot of reaching out, there's a lot of who can help me and trying things out and feeling into like what to trust and what's helpful and what's not. And it can feel overwhelming, especially when you're in a crisis and your nervous system is already so overwhelmed. And I'm just curious if you could say anything about what that was like in that time and what led you to choose to work with me, because we worked together in a dedicated container for several months from I think it was 2023 until sometime last year. I can't remember the exact dates, but it was several months. And what was it that led you to um, uh-oh, are you frozen? It looks like she's frozen. Hopefully she'll come back. Oh, there we go. There she is.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know why you froze.
Um, yeah, did you hear my question is like, how was it in that time and what led you to choose to work with me?
hmm Yeah, I definitely remember just the feeling of like desperately reaching out for anything that could help and most things making everything worse, both like physically, but also spiritually and mentally.
Hmm. Hmm.
And never having experienced anything like that before because, with my background in Chinese medicine, it was like I have a problem, I take a formula, and then I get better. And it was like, yeah, with dysautonomia, it's like many things I tried made everything a thousand times worse. And um, yeah, so for me, it was probably more like spirit that called me to you. I had had a series of dreams like years before that I was very ill and like who was helping me. And I think that's how you came into my path. I kind of followed some of that guidance. And yeah, I think like you were recommended to me by a very close friend and you had gone through it. So obviously, like I felt like I could trust you and you had gotten better. You had healed yourself. And that like I don't know. I mean, there's definitely multiple doctors at that point that told me like this is an uncurable condition or whatever. We don't know what's wrong with you, but it's like there's no cure for it. And like there's no way like I refuse to believe that.
Yeah.
So just I asked for it and then the universe handed me somebody who was like, yes, I went through that and I'm doing much better now. And like other people are like, yeah, I know this person who went through that and she's like all better. And I'm like, great, because there's no way that I'm going to accept that. And, I have kids and a very like, I just feel deeply like my mission of the things to do on this beautiful earth still is very strong inside me. So.
It sure
Um,
is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like I knew like from long ago, like I grew up not trusting Western medicine, or like the Western approach to lots of things. But then when I got sick, I was like, I'll try anything. And then I just like actually experienced being stuck in the medical system. And like, of course, they immediately gave me to like a psychiatrist who completely like was just awful to me in so many ways and made everything like so much worse and was just like did not believe anything I said that I was experiencing um and wanted only like didn't was not happy with me because I wouldn't take antidepressants, which is, I was like five different doctors wanted me to take five different antidepressants. So it was just like a nightmare, you know, and it was, I saw a person for like PTSD and she was like, she seemed like a very nice, like I just randomly got her by an accident. I wasn't even like supposed to see her. But they, yeah, basically, I signed up for this PTSD program where I had to see her weekly. And she seemed like good, you know, I was like, oh, this is going to be good. But it was like, not supportive at all. Like it was like, here's the workbook. You have to do these exercises. If I hear that you're not doing them, then you're not being a compliant patient. And I'm like unhappy with you. I'm gonna like, you know, lecture you about it. And it was,
Oh
I
my
was
God.
like in a whole different like
Ooh.
world and time space. And it was just like so
Ooh.
like poisonous, like to have that, you know, and so like, you know, as soon as I started working with you, I was like, this is what I need. And it's nothing
Mm.
like all these prescribed, like I feel like I was given like five different workbooks from like five different programs that I was supposed to work through and they were supposed to
Ugh.
like, I don't even know what. But
Gosh,
it
it's
was
like,
just,
yeah, like I'm pretty much dying here and you're gonna give me a workbook and get mad at me if I don't fill it out. Oh my gosh.
yeah. I mean, I wasn't sleeping for like weeks and
Yes.
and they were like, if you don't show up to this thing, then we're kicking you out of the program. And I'm like this, you know, like I'm dying of exhaustion.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah,
go at
yeah.
all right now, you know, like
Yeah.
there's
Right.
zero like
Yeah.
ability to meet me where I'm at and like actually try to give me what I need. I don't know. So
No, it makes so much sense and it shows, there is a huge gap in education in the system around these things because it's like it feels like you're running a marathon at 100 miles an hour every day and night for months at a time. And
yeah.
maybe someone looking at you from outside can't really understand what's going on in there. But,
Yeah. Mhm.
and I feel like it is amazing that I had the exact same physical experience to understand that. But even had I not had that, understanding the nervous system and training around attunement and compassion, like there's never it's never a good idea to make someone who's in overwhelm do more. It's how do you learn how to receive support and feel safe in your cells in your deep being, and then your body can start like actually making clear decisions, and maybe eventually you can do the workbook, but right now you need someone to like freaking feed you and help like help you feel safe again so that your body can start operating properly. So I didn't know you had that experience. I don't think you shared that, so I'm so sorry that happened.
Yeah.
um
Thank you.
and it's really amazing to be talking with you now too, and seeing how like even just like how far you've come, seeing you sitting up in the chair and the strength in your voice and the clarity with which you could even talk about the story. I remember like our first several sessions, you were so dizzy and couldn't even get up. And there's just it's just amazing to see how far you've come. So I guess my next question is about like, in that discernment process, as you were able to discover what was not supportive and what was supportive, how did you, yeah, like how would you, looking back on it now, how would you say like this is what was supportive, this is what really worked versus what didn't?
Yeah. I mean, definitely all the pressure and things you have to do to make yourself get better, were it was like a revelation. Because even like the program we were both in, I felt tons of pressure and like I just needed like some permission to just, and I think my whole life I've needed permission to just lay down all day and rest day after day after day. And I had like a circle of like midwives that, you know, help, close friends that are midwives helping me from the beginning. And like, I just needed them to treat me like I was postpartum. They're like, nap whenever you feel like sleep when the baby
Yeah,
sleeps, or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and
yeah,
so I think like to work with you while we were also in that other program was really important because it was like actually I'm going to pick and choose what actually feels good. And then the dosage, like you were constantly
yes,
like, you know, you have to find the right dose for you. And for me, with my condition, it's just very mysteriously like the tiniest dose is all I need. And so I think, you know, I ended up really feeling a lot of improvement from like homeopathy. And it was like, I actually don't need like a Chinese formula is way too strong. So I actually am even now taking Chinese formulas like homeopathically, like I'm just putting a few drops of something in the
Yeah.
water.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel like it was like essential to hear to have that support from you and being able to approach things that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, my understanding in training is really in like there is no one size fits all. There is a way to learn how to read like what's really right for us.
Hmm.
And it's also there's like a large reframe around any shame that anybody might feel for being like on the quote unquote sensitive side, right? There's
Yeah.
a lot of that in our culture of like, oh, you can't take the full dose, like there must be something wrong with you. Whereas
Mhm.
like, well, what if actually I have such a finely tuned ability to sense and feel that I only need so much and I will achieve the desired shift that I need in my system. And that's so there's like both a an approach in the dosage and also the like mindset of like this can be empowering to use the right amount versus disempowering or comparative to like other people.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. I think like, growing up in New Mexico, it was always like you're not man enough if you don't eat enough chile or like if you can't spice enough chile. That may be the root of
that's the root. We found the root. Oh yeah, that's the root of all the trauma. You didn't eat, you were told you didn't eat enough chile like a man.
and I needed to have more spicy chile to grow hair on my chest. And actually one of my teachers in Chinese medicine school, I was seeing him and he was like right away he's like we need to get you to hold in those needles longer, because I could like barely retain them, and it was like, next time I want you to hold them for 15 minutes. And I was just like, absolutely not. Like, but I just like, I need
Yeah,
better. So I was like, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going
yeah,
to make myself get
yeah.
better.
Well, you're such a beautiful example of how when we stop trying to do that, pull it up by the bootstraps or be a man and actually listen and honor exactly where we are, that actually leads to healing and actual leads to like the strength and that I see and hear and feel in you in your nervous system to this day and your body, which is, and this is your case also just beautifully demonstrates how attuning the nervous system like and I'd be appreciative to hear your like your experience of this, but the way that it makes whatever physical work that you're doing to heal yourself, it makes it stick and actually take like have traction versus just doing the physical things and not helping the nervous system feel safe and listening to how it wants to take you through the healing journey.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have like a very long history of like Tai Chi practice and like meditation and stuff like that. And then even like once I got sick, I was given things to do, and I think I just needed like time to let things percolate. And now I feel like I actually have the thing, like I was like thrown, like everyone, they just threw everything at me. But I've had like the space and time to be like, okay, these are the things that feel good. And like the days that I don't do it, I'm like, maybe there'll be like a week where I'm like feeling really messed up and I'm like, oh, I didn't do my mindset practice at all this week, you know? Um, but so yeah, I think there's just something about I could do all those exercises and not it really not help or be supportive, but I really just needed like space and time to like try things slowly and find what actually worked and be able to do it. And I just like need to take that space for myself, and when I don't, I can like feel it. I don't know, it's like strange because I've had practices like that for the longest time, but maybe just with this condition, it was like, um, it has just become something that I allow myself to do. And at the same time, like if I don't do it, then there's like some kind of foundation of nervous system ability to like carry me through, and then get back into it. But yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, like it's that buffer, it's that resilience that helps through the ups and the downs. And it's interesting because as you're talking, I really am honored by your comment about how you feel like spirit led you to work with me, because I'm also remembering, and I talk about this with, everyone I work with. I talk about how our symptoms are actually like, if we are curious about them, they actually become sort of a doorway into like these hidden gifts, right? And with you, it was so apparent, being someone who's suffering from something where the physical symptoms are so blatant and like happening almost every time that we met, whether it was a migraine or dizziness or like whatever was happening in your body.
Mhm.
The beautiful thing was we could literally just let the space, like let them be in the conversation we were having with the nervous system. And almost every time, a really beautiful thing unfolded. Like I was just amazed at how almost every time we went into whatever symptom you were experiencing, like there was deep like visions and deep like ancestral patterns and family lineage patterns, and also just beautiful human like planet Earth patterns that were just showing up, and like reconnecting and restitching parts of your life and your ancestral life and your family, and the things that are obviously like, more in that realm of the sacred and the soul, we're coming up in those moments. Is there anything you want to share about how you noticed that come up in the work we did together?
Yeah, that was amazing. I mean, that's how like I knew it was the right thing, because I could bring my full self to our sessions, and pretty much I would say most parts of my life I cannot bring that. It has to hide, And because yeah, this society does not, there's a lot of hostility toward the sacred, even like especially by people who are like supposedly representatives of such a thing. Um, but it was like uh, through being severely ill, I had to connect the most deepest resources inside me, which just happens to be inside my bones and like a lineage carried on for millennia by my ancestors. Um, and that was like, I just remember like the most hardest, difficult times, the door like that I could walk through was just like deeply, deeply connecting with the experiences of like my great grandmothers, especially, and like remembering their stories and what they went through, and it being even more harsh than what I was going through, and so it feels, and I think a lot with like organic intelligence, like there's just this like allowing of beauty to just rush in, And so when we would do our sessions, it felt like a sacred space. It felt like a spiritual place. And it felt like um, I could like more easily connect and tap into that and even like understand the message that was being sent to me, from ancestors and from culture, So yeah, that was like very, very special for me. And um, I think like, yeah, there's like this radical acceptance that's just been demanded of me through all of this process of just have basically feeling like I lost everything that was like dear to me, but from my kids to like my garden to my chickens to the things that I do, the ceremonies, being in ceremonies and things like that, just all not being possible anymore because of being ill. And so like what I needed was to be able to connect to like this deep purpose, of like how you could lose all those things, but still have like relevance, and meaning in your life. And like actually, it might be maybe it's like the most important thing is like surrendering to life, taking you apart, because it needs to put its resources somewhere else in it, and that, like you have to take your turn of not getting what you want, you know?
Right.
So
And it's I have such a passion as you do for bringing the sacred back. It seems like in some ways that like all the other traumas almost like fall under that one, which is like that there's this rift between the social world and the sacred world. Like where
yeah,
did why are those so separate, like it doesn't make sense. And I love what you said about it being in your bones. Like we forget it's not just a pretty idea. Like our literal bones, our literal blood, our actual amazing incarnate human existence is like deeply woven with all of that. It's and so it only makes sense that when that gets lost in some way, it also affects this flesh and blood, being that that we inhabit.
yeah.
And I just wonder if you have like any advice from this standpoint of what you just shared, which was so beautiful and was part of my experience as well, of like there is a surrender to the undoing. And I think the reason why it's so scary um, in our world is because we've lost that sacred in our social life, and so there's a lot of people that don't understand when that's going on, and maybe they like freak out for us and then they're not grounded for us, or maybe they tell us to do 100 things like fill out a workbook and it's like no, that's not what I need. So there's like there's like a cultural gap in understanding what's needed so that someone can safely go through this unraveling process and achieve a kind of strength of spirit like you're speaking of having now. And so, what would and I aspire to provide that space. That's part of why I feel like I do this work, is because I want to bring that back. I would love eventually for the world to be that way again, for us to remember how to hold that space for people just as humans. But
Mm.
until then, I'm like championing, like, let's create the structures for that to happen. What would you tell someone who is on the beginning part of that unraveling and looking for the kind of support that will let them to have safely have like a sacred experience in it versus one that um, doesn't go well?
Find Elizabeth. I'm just kidding. Talk to Elizabeth. That's like a very big question. I mean, I think like there is, there may be something inside oneself that one doesn't realize is there. And maybe even there might be like a lot of fear of that from like growing up being taught to be critical or disbelieve, something very special inside you. Um, I don't know why, but like from a very young age, I just felt very spiritually connected. And I was raised by atheists and they like forbid me to like I couldn't say like, oh my God. Because it was like there's no such thing as God, or whatever. And yet I had this, and I don't, yeah, I just followed it. And recently, this is like very special. So like, my kids are very aware of like my spirituality is a very big part of my life. And my two sons that are older are already very critical and like, I don't believe in that or whatever. And the other day, my daughter was like, Mom, I believe in gods. And I was like, oh my God, it's happening. I was just like, where it was not what I expected at all. And um, I think that there, there's just something inside yourself that if you can like listen to, um, and go with. And yeah, I don't know. Like kind of going back to what we were talking about, like I think the reason why the sacred and the spiritual are shunned is because they don't make money. And um right now, like my oldest is his goal in life is to make lots of money. And like, yeah, he's like, I don't believe in that stuff anymore. And I think there's not it being making space for the sacred does not make money. Um, and you're not going to be guaranteed success. And it's still more important, you know. It's still like absolutely essential. And so there's just like we have to make room inside ourselves for things besides just like survival, you know, that actually matter. And so I think like some of my elders, it's like, yeah, we may die doing this. This may cause us to die, but it was like worth it because that it's more important that the world lives than just my own self, you know, or like that we keep this relationship with the earth, and like that we pass it on to our kids. You know, there's just things we need to make space for that are a lot more important than like having comfort and making money, you know.
Yeah.
So I
It's a
think people are like afraid of that. They think they need things that actually people haven't, they didn't need like the first millions of years that we were alive.
Yeah, which really speaks to the ancient and ancestral piece, and also this deep realization of like reprioritizing what really matters.
Mhm.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
it brings a whole nother conversation perhaps for another time too, which is like, but that, you know, this gap between the sacred and the quote unquote mundane has also led to this gap between the very the need we have, which is also really healthy, of taking care of our physical survival, whether that be with money or resources or housing, and to have that not be at the expense of losing this this meaningful piece of our spiritual self, our authentic self, our aligned self, our true, you know, mm, generous spirit of being. And like, can those two things come together? And I guess in that spirit, maybe one last question today would be like, now, because you talked about the feeling of it not feeling possible, and I know this is a long and deep journey. Anyone who's been through this kind of illness, it's not like you take a pill and you're better. It's like a long journey of deep changes of choice and rest and listening and deep listening and reprioritizing day in, day out until your habits like really lead you in a brand new direction.
Mhm.
And you don't just get better, you actually become a wholly new human whose life has like a whole new capacity in it. And this more priority of what really matters is kind of at the center. And
Yeah.
with that in mind, I'm curious if you want to share like what you now feel is like possible on your horizon, um, that you didn't like at the beginning back when you were unraveling, and now that you've been on the rebuilding part of the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. I just love how you're talking about all that. And it's like, um, the whole time that I was sick, like I have not been able to make income, you know, and I was terrified, you know, I was terrified. And yet, like, I was always given everything I needed, you know. And so it's like,
Yeah.
there doesn't need to be like this schism between the two of like, um, having the resources that you need, like to be physically alive, and also having being able to hold like what you need even on a spiritual level. And so yeah, I mean, I think like on the horizon, like along the way, there's just been moments where I felt like this great potential. Like I was just like, whoa, I feel like I could do something amazing. And it's just
Yeah.
very like nebulous and like mysterious, but I'm like, I have this feeling that there's some kind of potential like right before a lightning bolt hits the ground or something like this charge.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That life force coming in. Mm-hmm.
hmm And
Mm-hmm.
just like, and something just like very meaningful and resonant with me, you know, and what's the right thing. So, I don't know, even like the last time I spoke with you, you were just like kind of giving me a visualization of something like that I might be doing like to make a living again, you know? And it's just like those seeds like have been kind of like sprouting and I'm like, oh, maybe. Yeah, I think like just um kind of listening to spirit, and being ready to act like at the right moment, and being able to like lay some things in place, and just be like, okay, is this like what you want. Let's just keep, yeah. And even lately, I've been able to pick things up again that I dropped. So I think it is just letting time pass. But um, I think there's just like a potential to do something really meaningful. And even in a way that could like make a living, but like that's very different than how, because I think I was just kind of like a bit of a slave to my job and just doing whatever I needed to do, you know?
You already know that you will be taken care of if you stop controlling everything. And so now now it's like, okay, it's like I'm gonna only commit to something that if it really feels good with my spirit as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And what a testament to the mindset shift, which hopefully not everyone has to go through like a severe health crisis to realize too, like
Mhm.
how worthwhile we are to invest in, whether it's money or being gifted or supported in whatever way those resources do come. Um, Instead of thinking about, oh no, I'm losing this material thing, thinking of it as I'm putting it into the kind of support that I need to actually like achieve what is more meaningful even than
Mhm.
each dollar bill or whatever the thing is that I'm doing. And to say yes to something without even knowing how, I just want to like point that out that you paid me for sessions, even, even in the midst of all of that. And that just spoke to your commitment as well um, to say, this is what matters to me is to have a space where I get to be fully myself and my spirit gets to be the most important thing. Um, and I
Yeah.
also really look forward to seeing the fruits because I know those sprouts that you're talking about, like it's a whole different thing when then work and life and abundance can come in and it's not from that place of survival, but it's from a place of like spirit is shining and just wants to spread in the world.
Yeah, just following what feels good. Let's keep doing, let's keep doing this, you know?
Totally. Yay.
Not like I have to feel bad for it to be good.
No, yeah, no more. No more of that. No más.
Yeah.
Well, any last comments you want to make before we close our chat for today?
Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed like talking about all those times and remembering and savoring some of those revelations and deeply like meaningful times that we had, just me and you talking and growing together. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, me too. I feel filled up and I'm really excited to start our group next week. And um, yeah,
It already
my
feels
heart,
awesome.
my heart is really full. Okay.
Cool. All
Much love.
right.
See you soon.
All right. See you.